The Dark City of Commoragh is ruled over by the vast meritocratic gangs known as the Cabals, but the city could not survive with solely the Cabals around. In many ways, Commorragh is a twisted ecosystem in itself, with every major aspect of society working in a measure of murderous harmony to keep things stable after a fashion. However, some groups in Commorragh society stay away from the balance of power, remaining neutral in the petty politics of the cabals or otherwise dissociating from alignment to any faction. It is these groups we shall explore today, looking at both their origins and their role in the Dark City. Most notably, we shall explore the warrior cult supposedly founded by a fallen Phoenix Lord, known as the Incubi. This is Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. After the Cabals, the gladiatorial witch cults, and the horrifying homunculus covens, all of whom are able to project power far beyond the Dark City, the Incubi are probably the most powerful group within Commorragh. Interestingly though, no one's quite sure how the organisation, grouped into smaller autonomous shrines, actually came to be. It may be that the Incubi have been around as long as Commorragh has, a group of warrior cultists even before the fall of the Eldari that simply became more twisted as time went by. However, the most common theory regarding the founding of the Incubi traces back to a slightly more recent time, some point after the fall. It is well known that one of the Phoenix Lords, the foremost exarchs and overall embodiments of the Aspect Warrior shrines, was somehow corrupted and turned away from the aspect they represented. This was Drazhar, Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpions Aspect Warriors, and known today as the Fallen Phoenix. It is said that Drazhar would found the Incubi within Commorragh after this fall, with the Incubi being almost a dark reflection of the Aspect Warriors given their warrior cultures and traditions. The connections to the Aspect Warriors, and especially the Striking Scorpions Temple, do not actually stop there. The final ritual for a would-be incubus is to kill and then shatter the spirit stone of an Aspect Warrior, and it's actually believed that an incubus was converted by a craft world to become a Striking Scorpion. These destroyed spirit stones are changed into tormentors by the incubus that share an eerie similarity to the mandiblasters of the Scorpions, in case you needed more admittedly circumstantial evidence. As for the fate of Drazhar, no one's sure, but, well, we'll come back to it later. As for the Incubi themselves, their shrines are led by individuals known as hierarchs and worship the bloody-handed god Kayla Mensha Kane. It is commonly thought that the Incubi are the greatest warriors of the Drukhari in terms of pure martial skill, and anyone who witnesses them in battle would be hard-pressed to disagree. Commonly armed with the two-handed power weapons known as claves, the Incubi cut a swathe through any who face them in melee combat, and their incubus war suits are unique to the shrines. Not even Archons can get them, which shows how closely guarded their use and design is. That said, many Archons do work closely with the Incubi, employing them as mercantile guardians or enforcers. There are two broad reasons to choose an incubus over Carbolites for such tasks. One is the aforementioned martial prowess and unique equipment, both of which cannot be overstated. The other is the political neutrality of the Incubi in Commorragh. They don't care about the backstabbing and politicking inside or outside a cabal, they simply do as their contract demands. That's not to say that the Incubi are impossible to turn against an Archon employer, but it would not be due to personal or political motivations of the Incubi themselves, and the odds are far better as an Archon if Incubi form your guard as opposed to power-hungry, self-serving Carbolite underlings. Despite their high demand and the hordes of Drukhari who would seek to become an incubus, the ranks of warriors within the shrines is relatively low, perhaps almost certainly lower than the homunculus covens. This is due to the training and the ascension of the Incubi. The former is murderous in the extreme, no surprise given the standards and the nature of Cain, and the latter will often involve killing a current incubus to claim their war suit rather than swelling the ranks overall. This keeps the number of Incubi relatively low, as well as ensuring that only the finest warriors can ever don the armour and call themselves one of the greatest in the art of murder. It also raises a question possibly as to whether there is a finite number of Incubus war suits and whether Commorragh can manufacture any more. I suspect they can, warriors will get lost all the time, but it bears thinking about. Though they are not factions per se, I do wish to touch on the other subgroups of Commorragh before we look at a famous Incubus. These two groups are polar opposites in many ways, with vastly polarised equipment, abilities, and even habitats within the Dark City. The first is the strange avian Drukhari known simply as the Scourges. They probably have a fancier name in the Eldari tongue, but I don't know it, or care to know it. One might argue that the Scourges are Cabalites, and quite often they were at some point, but they do not swear loyalty to the Cabals as far as I know, and they are far too aloof to consider themselves one of the masses. Invariably, Scourges were once rich and particularly brave or stupid Drukhari, take your pick, who will usually have a severe detachment from the rest of their species. They will enlist the aid of the homunculi to perform incredible surgeries upon them. Hollowed bones, new and improved musculature, sometimes more avian facial reconstruction, all at the hands of the Covens and their pain engines. The most prominent and universal change, however, is the addition of actual biological wings on the backs of the would-be Scourges, though the designs do vary. Yes, Scourges go to homunculi, in short, to get the ability to fly. The Swooping Hawk aspect warriors use technology, but the Drukhari actually do honestly fly. That said, gathering together the funds to become a Scourge is one thing, surviving the surgery is probably another, but there is a final, arguably even tougher challenge. The existing Scourges live high in Ares above Commorragh, and the newly transformed warrior, with their wings still bleeding from the surgery, must fly up and join them in order to truly become a Scourge. With warring gangs in the skies and the menagerie of monsters both native and imported, this is no easy feat and probably kills many, but some do make it, joining the Sky Warriors. This ascension and the aforementioned detachment means that Scourges both figuratively and literally look down on all others in Commorragh, treating them with disdain. But they remain a potent asset in the armies of anyone willing to hire them, carrying heavy weapons to provide fast-moving fire support without the need for vehicles. Arguably, though, the most common employment for a Scourge is something that seems mundane but is in fact critical: courier and postal delivery service. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Scourges are the great Commorragh postal service, and whilst that may seem ridiculous, there's actually a very good reason for it. If an Archon needs to deliver a message that doesn't involve violence, who do you trust to deliver it? As discussed with the Incubi earlier, Cabalites are self-serving and cannot be trusted, and the Incubi are far too busy guarding the Archon and far too valuable to waste on delivering the mail. Technology is also fallible to corruption, hacking or general failure, and psychers are banned in the Dark City, so the Scourges are relied upon to hand-deliver the messages. This keeps the most valuable commodity in Commorragh, information, flowing smoothly and securely, with many Archons using tailored toxins as envelope sealant to ensure only the intended recipient can open it, as they should have the only antidote. It is not a cheap service for an Archon or a noble to employ, and it grants the Scourges near immunity in terms of physical aggression. Such is their importance to the Cabals that killing a Scourge is essentially signing one's own death warrant in the most torturous way possible. The other subgroup I wish to talk about are a terrifying something inhabiting the dark, shadowy subrealms of Commorragh. In particular, this group make their home in the shadowy realm of Drazhar, and they are known as the Mandrakes. Exactly where the Mandrakes came from, no one's quite sure. Some say they were Eldari pleasure cultists from before the fall, others say that they are the shadows of murderers come to life. To be truthful, much of the information around Mandrakes is basically rumour, hearsay and speculation, which is pretty much the way the Mandrakes want it if they really care about that sort of thing, due to the fear it instills even in the Drukhari. The main fighting methods of the Mandrakes rely on stealth. They are seemingly as one with the shadows, able to appear from them without warning to strike at any foe. Their shadow skin is also able to render them near invisible outside of direct light, and so Archons and other Drukhari leaders make great use of them. The costs of hiring mandrakes vary. Slaves is common because of course it is, it's Commorragh, but there have been some other more esoteric and downright odd requests too that I won't get into. That said, no one would be foolish enough to refuse or renege on any deal, as they wouldn't want the cannibalistic mandrakes or their blades to be biting into them next. Interestingly, there does appear to be a monarch amongst the mandrakes, a patron saint of sorts, who definitely exists but more as a figure of legend rather than an overall ruler. This is the semi-mythical Commorragh, the Decapitator, who has been around since the days of the Horus Heresy and has seemingly killed at random ever since. An eternal patience led to the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands, their heads being added to Commorragh's lair in Drazhar in just such a way. Most recently, following the resurrection of Yvraine and the disjunction that followed, Commorragh completed its collection of heads within its lair. This caused Drazhar to leach into Commorragh itself, rather than remaining a separate but connected realm. The shadows around the Decapitator's lair and throne are said to be alive, so all-consuming that not even demons can survive inside them. And who knows what follows for Commorragh and the Mandrakes, now that their previous scheme is complete. Finally, let's look at perhaps the most famous incubus that isn't Drazhar. Well, maybe anyway. This Drukhari is the Executioner, the Master of Blades, one of the champions of the entire Incubi sect. No one knows his true name, and the one he uses is ceremonial, Drazhar, or Living Sword in the Eldari tongue. Where exactly Drazhar came from is unknown. He just showed up one day at the Great Shrine of the Incubi and murdered everyone in his way, no questions asked. The Hierarch, the leader of the shrine, was dispatched in mere minutes as part of a ceremonial challenge, and Drazhar took up the mantle of Executioner that he has held ever since. However, he never tried to become a Hierarch himself or even a Clavex in charge of a small cohort. In fact, he doesn't even speak as far as we're aware. Many will follow him into battle, but he's not a leader, just a killer. His armour is an ancient variant of the Incubus warsuit, tougher than any other. Some even say that it was the original one, though that is unsubstantiated like all of Drazhar's history. What we do know more of, mind you, is what he's been up to since that time. It's said he was able to best several members of the Adeptus Custodes at once, but his role in Eldari politics has won him the most recorded plaudits. Even Drazhar is just an incubus if we're being technical, so he follows the same mercenary rules and codes of all the shrines, which means he takes employment from whoever so happens to employ him. Of late, that employer has been none other than the supreme overlord of Commorragh itself, a certain dark muse by the name of Azdrabael Vecht. The Master of Blades is actually very famous and admired across the Dark City, so Vecht being the one to secure his services makes sense as a way to prevent any upstart Archons from using his patronage as a form of leverage. However, Drazhar is not employed as a status symbol or a guardian by Vecht. He's built to kill and nothing else, so the Supreme Overlord has used him as such, as a precise blade, an assassin. In particular, Vecht has sent Drazhar after the most infamous Eldari of the modern age, Yvraine, the emissary of Iniad. I assume this is because Yvraine is being viewed as a threat to Vecht's total authority over the Drukhari, due to the number of Ynnari members defecting from Commorragh to her cause. But whatever the Supreme Overlord's reasoning, it's a testament to just how important Yvraine is. Drazhar got his chance at Iniad's emissary on the craft world Sai Mahan, but his attack was stopped at the last moment by the intervention of the Phoenix Lord Drazhar. Even the Storm of Silence herself wasn't able to hold Drazhar back for long though. Only the power of Iniad increasing her own skill kept the executioner at bay long enough for Yvraine to escape. The hunt did not end with one failed attempt, but now Drazhar had a score of sorts to settle, and he laid a trap by allying with the Mandrakes of Drazhar. Luring the Ynnari and Drazhar to a place shrouded in blackness by the Mandrakes, Drazhar's forces wreaked havoc and the Incubus even slew the Phoenix Lord. Only the power of Yvraine allowed Drazhar to be reborn, as Drazhar tried to prevent a new Exarch from donning the armour by cutting it in two and giving the parts to the Mandrakes. Now sworn to both Cain and Iniad, Drazhar would square off with Drazhar one more time, with Yvraine deliberately making herself bait on the last craft world of Xandros. That location may sound insignificant, but no, this place matters to Phoenix Lord history. It was on Xandros that the fallen Drazhar would duel against Kirandras, the successor as Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpions. There was no victor in the battle that raged there, though Kirandras arguably claimed the mental victory through his survival and his infuriating actions before escape. Drazhar was the only Drukhari to walk away from Xandros alive, mainly because he killed everyone else there in his rage at Kirandras. And yet Drazhar knew the history of Xandros, something that I doubt was an oft-told tale in Commorragh if it was ever told at all. Either way, the battle was on. The Vizarch kept Ivrain from harm, whilst Drazhar and Drazhar went to war once again. This time, the contest was more even, though I do believe Drazhar may have needed a little bit of Ynnari's soul burst power to keep it that way. In the end, however, Drazhar met his match. He lost, and Drazhar decapitated the Master of Blades before all his forces were all but annihilated in turn. But it may well be that, despite being dead and an enemy of the Ynnari who could possibly resurrect him, Drazhar's story isn't quite over. Though I have yet to confirm the reports, it is believed that another incubus, a Clavex named Darakinia Thromens who had survived the battle, found Drazhar's warsuit and helm. When she put them on, presumably just believing they'd be a nice upgrade to her kit, it is thought that something rather odd happened. Thromens was lost after a fashion once she put on the armour, and Drazhar was supposedly back in her place. As I say, this is something I am yet to confirm, but if it's true, it raises some very interesting questions and suggests some major revelations about Drazhar's nature. The only Eldari we know able to pull this sort of trick are the Phoenix Lords, who are reborn whenever a new exarch of their aspect shrine dons their armour. Many have said that the Incubi are dark reflections of the Aspect Warriors, and we already discussed the rumour that Drazhar was their founder after his fall. If all of this is true, it perhaps stands to, maybe not reason, but certainly a possible conclusion, that Drazhar, which we already know is a title not a name, is Drazhar, donning a new mantle and title after his defeat by Kirandras. Without a clear timeline of events, it would be impossible to say for sure. For example, did Drazhar first appear before or after Drazhar and Kirandros went to war on Xandros? But given the supposed resurrection trick and the knowledge of that first duel, as well as being the absolute finest incubus in combat and having the supposedly ancient armour, it is certainly within the realms of possibility. Given Drazhar's silence on this and all matters, it is likely we will never know for sure, and I can only speculate as to why a possible Phoenix Lord would not choose to become the leader of the Incubi or otherwise reveal themselves in some way. But maybe we will find out one day, and much as I loathe the Commorrights, I will be watching reports of Incubi activity closely to see if Drazhar returns. And there you have it, what we know of the Incubi, Drazhar, and a few of the other mercenaries in Commorragh. I feel like that's actually a clean sweep now on Commorragh, since we've discussed the Cabals, the Cults, the Covens. I think we've covered everything, so hopefully that's our last trip to the Dark City, at least for a while. As already mentioned though, I will be keeping an eye out for Drazhar in particular. The possibility of an original Phoenix Lord being revealed for certain cannot be discounted. For now, however, we must move on. Next time? I'm actually not sure. With that said though, there are some old stories in need of an update, not an official addendum per se, but sort of a redux combining new information with better presentation. I'm aware that when I started these logs I spoke far too quickly. So I think we'll do one of those next time, looking at one of the most famous Astartes successor chapters from one of the most famous Astartes legions. Thank you for watching Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.